coming back into your own country, this is not what you expect. You would expect coming back, especially for a medical treatment, that I should be, all due respect, like welcome with open arms, not handcuffs. Saying that.
Saying what?
So I'm just showing you from the government of Canada where it says...
You're handing me a piece of paper with words on it.
I'm paraphrasing, but basically subcontracted out to public health for their protection. And I'm like, well, who's there for my protection? Oh, hold on. So you're not on duty with the police department right now? This is private?
This is private right now.
Ah, interesting. So you're private Gestapo. Nice. What's going to happen now if this app is scrapped? I am now waiting a trial. Do I still go to trial? Am I still fined? Am I a criminal now? It's bizarre. The whole thing is just draconian, and it is not the Canada I remember. I'll tell you that.
Wow. You have a free PCR test to prove that one?
No.
No?
Like I said, luckily I have those great antibodies, and COVID's over now, so it's great. Oh, except for Canada, sorry.
Scott Heaney of Vaughan, Ontario, recently had to fly to Mexico for a serious medical operation, namely stem cell replacement therapy. The procedure was painful, but it was successful. Alas, his flight back to Canada was not such a success. Scott had no trouble flying from Mexico to San Diego, but when he arrived at Pearson International Airport, that's when his nightmare began. And joining me now is indeed Scott Heaney. Thank you so much for your time, sir. So happy to hear that the operation was a success. But Scott, you arrive from your connecting flight at YYZ, as Pearson is known. And then what happens?
Well, that was nice to meet you virtually in person anyway, David. Well, YYZ was my final destination. So as you had alluded to, I had gone to Mexico. I was diagnosed with multiple herniated discs in my neck. And the only option available in Canada was a very horrendous surgery where they would go through the front of my neck, remove the windpipe, put in artificial disc, and needless to say, I was trying to avoid it at all costs. So I went for stem cell replacement therapy at a place called the Cellular Performance Institute at a Chipsa hospital. Any event, I was down there for a week for this therapy, and I went down through Mexico because I wanted to avoid any issues or potential issues around travel restrictions. Had no problem. As you indicated, the treatment was a success, or at least we'll know for sure in 3 months when I do my final checkup there. But coming back, border at San Diego, I decided to fly back through San Diego International. So from Mexico to San Diego, no problems. Actually, there was no vaccine questions or anything of that nature. He just asked me if I had anything to declare. And at that time, all it was pain. So myself and the American customs, we had a bit of a chuckle over that. Off to the airport, again, no issues at Air Canada. Also because they asked me for my ArriveCAN there, but I told them I had called ahead to Border Patrol, and they said within their app, there was nothing where I could fill out for my specific reasons for traveling, which were health related. So they said, as long as you have a note and stuff from your doctor and from the hospital, you should be okay, which they accepted fine. Again, everything was okay until, again, that long flight arriving in YYZ. I also want to indicate that I'd come out of this procedure, as you said, a lot of pain, and they told me it was going to be a little rough after. So I was pretty heavily sedated on painkillers, nerve blockers, things of that nature, and had a friend traveling with me who had a procedure done as well. So when we got to YYZ, it was a very, very different atmosphere than I had seen either on the US side or even in Mexico. It's funny because we think of these, going into a third world country where you need to be a little nervous. It was actually quite the opposite for me. It was coming home. And usually you will have the Border Patrol officers in their booths, as we've all seen. But when I got to YYZ, they were all kind of gathered in one spot, and the crowd was kind of corralled to there. And something, I just in the back of my head, I knew something was not going to be right. As I approached them, I was asked for this app. I explained to them the same things I did to Air Canada and to the American Border Patrol that, I don't think it's necessary because of, going down for this medical procedure.
In the last 14 days, did you visit any other country other than the US?
Yes, I was having surgery in Mexico. They took my papers away. Then a senior officer who looked like he's from Peel Region came over, told me that I need to go talk to public health. Explained to him that, I'm really under the weather, this procedure I'd done, not to mention the heavily medicated. And he essentially told me if I don't go talk to them, I will be arrested. Not essentially, he did. He said, if you do not talk to them, you will be arrested. So yeah, that was the beginning of a long little layover.
And Scott, if I can interject, you said earlier that the airline said just show the note from your doctor and everything will be okay. Besides that, you're in a lot of pain, you're under sedation, you're returning from a long flight.
Yes.
I'm putting myself in the boots of a CBSA agent or a Peel Regional Police officer that you dealt with, and I'm thinking, boy, this guy's been through the gears. I'm just going to let him go, turn a blind eye. But that's not the case. They were sticklers for these details. And why is it that suddenly we have two different stories? The airline saying just show the note, and when you get there, the note's not good enough. Did you ever get an explanation as to that, Scott?
No, I didn't. And there's more than those two stories. It seems that everywhere that I go, there's a different interpretation of the mandates and the laws, depending on who you speak to or who you're with. I find it even changes on their own websites as the days go by. No, as a matter of fact, and I have a lot of this on video. At one point, I actually passed the officer from the Government of Canada's website about entry into Canada. No one can be denied, even without this app. And he says something to the effect of, again, I was pretty sedated, but like, you're showing me a piece of paper with words on it.
Saying that.
Saying what?
So I'm just showing you from the Government of Canada where it
You're
says...
handing me a piece of paper with words on it.
I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to do here. And again, then the public health officer came over. I knew that this had little to do with public health or COVID or any of those things, because they weren't really asking me questions around that. It was very vague around my health and stuff like this. It was mostly this pressure around this app. The officer, the police officer in this incident, gave me two options. He said either, fill out the app or take a fine. I'm exhausted at this point, so I'm just like, I'll just take the fine.
You can either provide the information on ArriveCAN, right? If you don't want to do that, that's totally fine.
Right.
All right. I'm not here to force you to do anything.
Okay.
However, you will be issued a ticket. All right. And then you can go.
Oh, that's fine. I'll take
All
the
right?
ticket. Awesome.
Okay. All right.
We're done.
Not realizing the fine coming back would be $6,255 for not having an app installed on your phone.
Say that again, Scott? $6,255?
Yeah, essentially a quarter of the cost of my medical treatment because I don't have an app. I also indicated to the public health officer that I work in technology myself, and I wasn't comfortable with the terms of service on this particular app, and I don't, I want to research it more. And he gave a little snide remark like, "Oh, so there's your reason." Like, well, that doesn't really matter what my reason is. I'm not comfortable with this app. I've also found out that these guys have to be designated to give out these tickets. So I've also gone forward to find out this person did have proper designation to hand out a ticket of this nature, because nothing was presented to me at the time. I barely got their names, even that they were very uncomfortable giving, but luckily I got them, and I got photos of their badges and whatnot.
Scott, what bothers me about this story so much, clearly you're not a threat to Canada. You're not the modern day male version of Typhoid Mary. You are deserving, I think, after a long flight, after a serious operation, for some compassion, but there is no compassion. I think this is the second most egregious story I've heard. The first one being earlier this month, we interviewed a senior citizen from Stouffville, Ontario. She was going through the same ArriveCAN app dance you did, and the CBSA withheld her blood pressure medicine that was in her suitcase as a bargaining chip to get her to fill out the ArriveCAN. A grim, perverse joke was almost on them. Her blood pressure soared, and a paramedic had to come, and it was a close call. I mean, but...
Hey, I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, wow.
Oh, if you're not laughing, you're crying. I mean, it is beyond the pale that you're doing this. And, if the rumors are true, the ArriveCAN is going away or going to be made optional. All these other hoops are going to end. What is it about some people who are the gatekeepers at Canadian airports that they operate in, I don't have any other words, Scott, such a cruel fashion?
It's a great question. And since this time, obviously, I've done a little bit more digging myself because I wasn't as privy to all the facts around this. And I'm finding out people are coming back and forth all the time. And it really depends on who you get at that border. Now, I don't know if it's something about the way I looked or something the guys is having a bad day, why I'm chosen, or in the case that you're just indicating around this elderly person. Why are we being singled out and given these fines when it seems that other people, if they know the correct verbiage and the correct things to do, can get their way through? It's a very odd system that's in place that I don't think any of us understand. It also
and by the
left
way,
me with
Scott, if I can interrupt there,
please.
You talked about the correct verbiage to get you through the hoops. And that's an important thing you said, because earlier this month, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Patrick McNulty. He was a CBSA agent. He was suspended without pay, eventually fired. And what he was doing, he was going on social media, telling Canadians arriving back into Canada, here's what you have to say. And it wasn't about cheating the system. It wasn't about finding loopholes. It was by saying the right things. You don't have to deal with this kind of draconian, forceful, attitude of these border guards. He was also charged with criminal harassment for posting those videos, and he has a gag order, much like Tamara Leach, that if he talks about the case, he's going to violate his bail conditions and he'll be thrown in jail.
We cannot deny a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, a person registered under the Indian Act, a foreign worker under a lawful foreign work permit, study permit, whatever. We cannot refuse you entry for not complying with this nonsense. This is not a law. This is not an act. This is a mandate. There is so much red tape. It is unbelievable.
I guess what I'm getting at is that when you have a good soul with the CBSA that reaches out to Canadians, well, I guess no good deed goes unpunished by this Trudeau Liberal government. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it's almost back to rules for thee type of thing. Yeah. I really, again, I'm not too familiar with the story that you're mentioning, but I've seen it now with my own eyes. I know that, to your point, where people who, it's not that they're doing anything against the system. They're just using their own verbiage, their own language against them. And I've seen videos of this now too. Even in my instance, when I told them that I wasn't comfortable going to see the public health, it's just because I wanted to get the heck out of town. I was under the weather. I was, to your point, came out of a serious situation, medical situation. I kept indicating I was incapacitated. They didn't care, and the fact of the matter that I was being threatened with an arrest for not wanting to walk over to see public health. I wonder if I had been more like one of these folks and called them on that, because I don't think they would have been able to do that. So it's interesting to me how far, when you call their bluff, they go. It's pretty obvious. It's when you're in the middle of it and you're under the pressure of this, it is a power situation. I asked the officer himself there, are you representing Peel Region now with your, and he's like, actually, I'm subcontracted out right now. I'm not, it's not, I'm paraphrasing, but basically subcontracted out to public health for their protection. And I'm like, well, who's there for my protection?
Oh, hold on. So you're not on duty with the police department right now? This is private?
This is private right now.
Ah, interesting. So you're private Gestapo. Nice.
Incredibly confusing matter. It's incredibly anxious. Like, you don't know, you're coming back into your own country. Yeah. This is not what you expect. You would expect coming back, especially for a medical treatment, that I should be, all due respect, like welcome with open arms, not handcuffs.
Scott, if you want to be welcomed with open arms, what you should have done is fly into New York State and then crossed over illegally to the border of Quebec at Roxham Road. No hassle there, no fines there. In fact, the RCMP turned into the Royal Canadian Bellhop Police. They'll even carry your bags. I mean, it makes you wonder, is the world upside down, my friend?
I think everything in the world these days is a little bit upside down, to the point where, like, we even had to be careful what we say,
Oh, yeah.
I want to reiterate, I'm not a person's out there. I'm not trying to grandstand or get on my soapbox or anything. I'm just a dude that couldn't get a medical treatment in Canada, raised a lot of money through crowdsourcing that to go have it done abroad. I had COVID in my past, so I certainly wasn't going to get a vaccination for something I already have incredible antibodies for. So it just was a no-brainer for me.
Did you complete a pre-arrival COVID test before coming in?
No. Luckily, I had COVID before, so I have the perfect vaccine.
And then to come back and to be faced with this, it's just mind blowing. I will point out one other thing that really showed me that this had nothing to do with COVID is when the public health officer asked me my quarantine schedule now. He's like, are you going to be at home? And I'm, well, actually, yes, because of this procedure, I do have to stay home 2 weeks anyway. Oh, okay. Who's going to be there with you? My wife, my common law wife. Oh, okay. Will you be separate quarters? Sure. Yes. So you'll be sleeping separately. Of course. So who's picking you up tonight? Oh, the same person, my wife. Oh, okay. So we have no driving home with her for 40 minutes. But the fact that we could potentially share a room together, now we're talking like a plague.
So do you have space at this residence where you can be separate from your wife during your quarantine?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. And how are you getting home today?
She's picking me up. She's outside waiting.
It makes
Obviously,
no sense, Scott.
None of it makes sense. And what is it that's so important about this app that they want to lay a fine of over $6,000 against an average Canadian citizen? For why? I mean, and I later found out there was a third option that I was never presented. I could have filled out the app, download it and filled it out, taken the fine as I did, or there was a manual apparently that I could have filled out manually or some other option like that. Never presented to me. Again, why is this app so important that they're going through so much force to have them to download it? And to your question, what's going to happen now if this app is scrapped? I am now waiting a trial. Do I still go to trial? Am I still fined? Am I a criminal now? It's bizarre. The whole thing is just draconian, and it is not the Canada I remember. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
You have a PCR test to prove that one?
No.
No?
Like I said, luckily I have those great antibodies and COVID's over now, so it's great. Oh, except for Canada, sorry.
Well, Scott, we got to wrap it here. I will say this, the good news is even though this operation costs you several $1,000s, it seems to be a success. I'm so
It's
happy.
getting there.
Yeah, there you go. The pain is going away. But last question, that fine, $6,255, that's a lot of money to me. I don't know what your financial situation is. Are you going to fight that? And are you hopeful that if these regulations are gone in the near future, that's something in your corner? You can tell the judge, if I were to fly out now, none of this applies. So what was the difference between now and early September?
Exactly. And that raises to your first question. No, I am not paying a penny of this.
Okay.
I put it forward for trial. I don't feel I did anything wrong. I'm a Canadian citizen coming home, to your point, after a medical treatment. No, I'm definitely not. And I'm looking forward to discovery, actually, within that trial case. In what happens once this drops, it raises another point. I'm supposed to go back down there in 3 months for my checkup. Right? So now going back 3 months, if I come back and there's no ArriveCAN, now hunky-dory, everything is fine now. So we're in a weird limbo world right now.
Well, Scott, when you go back for your follow-up operation, I hope, regardless of what the rules are in 3 months, I hope you at least this time meet border guards and police officers and public health officials with some empathy for someone who is going through serious operations, because you received no empathy at all earlier this month. Scott, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best as you recover, my friend.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Rebel News. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Gotcha. And that was Scott Heaney from Vaughan, Ontario. Thank you once again.
Even if the Liberals scrap the app, we must work to ensure that it never becomes a reality again. There you can also sign this petition, so long as it stays active. That's noarrivecan.com.